She was the most beautiful goddess in existence. Her husband was the lord of all elves. She had power beyond mortal comprehension, palaces that defied reality, children who were gods themselves. And she threw it all away for one thing: revenge. This is the story of how Arashne became LOLTH, the Spider Queen. How a goddess of beauty transformed into a monster with 8 legs and 8 eyes. How love curdled into hatred so profound it birthed an entire race of elves twisted by darkness. I watched every moment. I was her handmaiden for 3,000 years. I stood beside her as she plotted. I saw her weave the conspiracy that shattered the elven pantheon. I watched her body break and twist into something that still haunts my dreams. The compulsion magic she placed on me forced me to witness everything, forced me to remember, forced me to become her chronicle. Pour yourself a drink. This will take a while. Gods don't fall in a moment. Their descent takes centuries. Their betrayal requires patience, and their transformation demands witnesses. I am that witness. This is what I saw. But before I tell you about her betrayal, you need to understand one thing about Corlin Larethian, Lord of the Elves. He had a talent for making enemies. Long before the elven people existed, the gods fought primordial titans for control of reality. The Dawn War, the greatest conflict in cosmic history. Grumsh, the orc god, fought harder than anyone. He bled more, sacrificed more, won more victories. Battle after battle, he never rested. But when the war ended and it was time to divide the world, Corellon decided to play a prank. He convinced the other gods to pretend Grumsh got nothing, just for laughs, just to see his reaction. They drew lots. Corellon got the forests, Moradin got the mountains. All the lots were claimed. They turned to Grumsh. "Where will your people dwell? There is no place left." Grumsh stared at them, at these gods he'd bled beside, these allies who thought his humiliation was entertainment. He lifted his great iron spear and drove it into the world, pierced mountains, split hills, gouged meadows. "Here, this is where the orcs shall dwell, in these wounded places. And a day will come when they cover the world and slay all of your peoples." Corellon tried to apologize. "Wait, it was only a jest." "You're not my friend," Grumsh said. "You are a fool who thinks the world exists for your amusement." He attacked. They fought for days. Grumsh's raw power against Corellon's graceful precision. In the end, Corellon's blade struck through the orc god's left eye. Grumsh fled, cursing. "You have made an enemy this day, one that will haunt you across eternity." From the mixed divine blood spilled in that battle, the first elves came into being, beautiful, graceful, immortal, marked by violence. Corellon brought them to Arvindor, a realm of ancient forests and starlight. Some of these first elves grew in power until they transcended mortality, becoming the Seldarine, the elven pantheon. And brightest of all was Arashne. The first time I saw her, she was weaving something impossible. I was young when I entered her service, 200 years old, skilled in magic and weaving, desperate to serve a goddess. Her palace defied description. Tapestries hung in every hall, each showing a possible future. Walk through one corridor, and you might see yourself victorious. Walk through another, and you might see yourself dead. Arashne sat at her loom, fingers moving too fast to follow. The tapestry wasn't made of silk. It was made of pure possibility, of fate itself. "You see the threads," she said without looking up. "Most cannot. Most only see the cloth when it's finished. But you see where they cross, where they could be cut." I stood frozen. "I could make you powerful," she continued. "Teach you to weave fate itself. Would you like that?" "Yes, Lady Weaver." "Good. She finally looked up. Her eyes were black, completely black, like the spaces between stars. Because I'm going to need help with something, something that will change everything. That was 3,000 years ago, back when I thought she was offering me power. I didn't realize she was recruiting a witness. Araushni was Coralon's consort, his beloved, his equal. He had courted her with gifts beyond measure, given her power over destiny itself. When he asked her to be his bride, she said yes. The wedding was magnificent. For a time, it was paradise. I learned to weave spells into cloth. I walked through gardens with Arashni's children, Veyron and Ilistre. Veyron was dark and serious, always watching. He reminded me of his mother. Ilistre was light incarnate, quick to laugh. She reminded me of Corellon. Their mother loved them differently. Veyron she taught to scheme, to see weakness, to understand that power flows to those bold enough to seize it. Ilistre she kept at arm's length, like a beautiful object never truly known. The work was beautiful at first, but Araushni was changing. You need to understand what Corellon did that made this possible. The mistake that cost him everything. Gods convened councils in Arvandor regularly. Corellon always consulted the others, shared power, made decisions collectively. Except he didn't. Not really. Every council followed the same pattern. Discuss, debate, argue. Then Corellon would decide. And because he was beloved, because he was charismatic, because he was beautiful, they followed. Araushni noticed. When Corellon makes a decision, does he consult me first? She asked me once, watching the Seldarine gather. Or am I decoration, the artisan goddess, pretty and useful, but never central to true power? I didn't know how to answer. You're afraid to speak the truth, she said. Her fingers moved across her loom, pulling threads tight. He has made himself indispensable. But centers can shift, threads can be cut. She paused. You will say nothing of this conversation. Yes, my lady. Now fetch me spider silk from the deep stores. I have a new pattern to begin. I went to the stores beneath her palace. The silk hung in enormous skeins in the darkness. As I gathered it, I heard something. A whisper. Not words. More like the sound of many legs moving across stone. I spun around. Nothing. Just shadows and silk. But when I left, I felt something on the back of my neck. Not a touch. More like attention. Like being watched by eyes I couldn't see. That was my first mistake. Saying nothing. The changes started subtly. Araushni spent more time in her private chambers. Her tapestries grew darker, blacks and purples instead of silvers and golds. Veyron spent more time with his mother, whispering in corners. Ilistre grew quieter. I found her crying in the garden once. My mother doesn't love me, she said. Of course she does. No, she looks at me like I'm a tool she hasn't found a use for yet. Ilistre's voice broke. Be careful. My mother is planning something terrible. Everyone close to her will burn. That night I broke into the locked chamber. The tapestry covered the entire wall. It showed the fall of Arvandor. Corellon lay bleeding, an arrow through his eye. The Seldarine fought among themselves, confused. The sacred forest burned. At the center stood Araushni, but not as I knew her. 8 legs instead of 2, multiple eyes, part elf, part spider. Webs stretched from her fingers, entangling gods. Around her, thousands of elves knelt, their skin darkened to black, their hair white as bone. They raised weapons in salute. She was creating the drow. Beautiful, isn't it? I spun. Araushni stood in the doorway. My lady, You saw Ilistre's distress. You wanted to understand. She circled me. This is destiny. True destiny. The elven race has grown soft. We need strength. I will show them what they can become when they stop pretending nobility matters. You would destroy everything. I would perfect everything. She raised her hand. Threads appeared, wrapping around me. Silver and black, not tight enough to choke, just tight enough to control. Compulsion magic sank into my mind like hooks. You will witness everything, and when it's over, you will tell my story. You will watch me become LOLTH. Her plan had been growing for centuries. First, she poisoned trust. Sehanine Moonbow, goddess of moonlight, was Coralon's oldest friend. Araushne spread rumors. Forged letters appeared. Enchanted items turned up in Sehanine's quarters. Witnesses came forward with false memories. Sehanine denied everything. Coralon believed her. But doubt is poison. Second, she recruited enemies. The compulsion magic forced me to watch her secret journeys beyond Arvandor. I stood in shadows as she met with Grumsh in his bleak realm. His ruined eye socket wept constantly, a reminder of his humiliation. Challenge him again, Aroshni said. This time I will ensure your victory. I will sabotage his blade. Sahandrian will shatter. Why should I trust you? Grumsh's voice was gravel and hatred. Because we both want the same thing, his destruction. She stepped closer. I want the elven people remade. Strong, ruthless, worthy of true power. Grumsh smiled. Send him to me. She made similar offers to Malar the Beast Lord, to goblinoid gods, to evil dragons, to Gonador, the ancient god of abominations. All of them agreed to attack when she gave the signal. Third, she compromised Arvandor's defenses. I watched her weave magic into the protective wards that had stood since the realm's creation, creating gaps, weaknesses, paths through which enemies could pass. Fourth, she brought Veron fully into her conspiracy. We will rule together, she promised him, you and I, when Coralon falls. And Illustre. If she won't join us, she dies with him. Veron nodded, his face cold. Fifth, she set her trap. She wove a curse into Coralon's scabbard. Any blade drawn from it would weaken and shatter at the first serious blow. Then she whispered to Coralon, Grumsh makes threats. You should meet him. End this ancient grudge. To make it fair, swear to use no divine magic, just blade against spear. Coralon agreed. Everything was ready. The battle happened on a distant moor, far from Arvandor. I watched from the shadows, forced by her magic to witness. Grumsh and Coralon met. The fight was brutal. Raw power against graceful precision. Then Grumsh struck. His spear crashed against Sahandrian. There should have been a ringing clash. Instead, a horrible cracking sound. The legendary blade shattered. Coralon stared at his ruined weapon in shock. Grumsh's spear lashed out, striking him in the shoulder, chest, side. Divine blood spilled. Coralon ran. Grumsh pursued, roaring triumph. Above them, Sehanine Moonbow watched in horror. The moon goddess had suspected treachery. She'd seen the curse. She'd spent hours desperately reforging Sahandrian, pouring all her divine magic into the blade. Now she stood on a hill in Arvandor, the restored sword in her hands. Grumsh crested the rise, raising his spear for the killing blow. Sehanine stepped between them. You interfere, the orc god howled. You were tricked, Sehanine said, her voice cold silver. Used as a weapon by one who hides in shadows. She held Sahandrian out to Coralon. He took it, and the blade blazed with renewed power. They fought again. This time Coralon struck Grumsh's other eye, blinding him. You were deceived by an elf, Coralon said. Thus it is our responsibility. Grumsh clutched his ruined face. You know nothing. You can't understand that you've already lost. You don't even know the names of your foes." He staggered away. Coralon looked at Sehanine. "An elf did this? Who?" Before she could answer, Araushni's voice cut through the air. "Treachery!" She stood at the clearing's edge, face twisted with false horror. Behind her, the Seldarine approached, drawn by sounds of battle. "Sehanine attacked you," Araushni cried. "I saw it. She conspired with Grumsh. She weakened your blade." "No," Sehanine backed away. "That's a lie." But the evidence was damning. Sehanine held the reforged sword, her magic all over it. Coralon was wounded, blood on her hands from trying to heal him. "I found proof," Araushni continued. "Letters. She has been plotting against you for years. I tried to warn you, but I was too late." The other gods surrounded them, all staring at Sehanine with horror. "Please," Sehanine whispered. "Araushni is the traitor. She engineered this." But trust, once broken, is hard to restore. They seized Sehanine, bound her with divine chains, dragged her away as she screamed her innocence. Araushne knelt beside Coralon, cradling his head, whispering comfort. I saw her smile, just for a moment. A flash of triumph before she schooled her expression back to grief. While the Seldarine dealt with Sehanine's trial, Araushne activated the final phase. She sent Ilistrae on a meaningless errand, getting her away from Arvindor. Then the invasion began. The enemies she'd recruited approached from 100 directions. Orcs and ogres, goblins and dragons, demonic entities. They should not have been able to pass through Arvindor's wards. They passed through easily. The alarm went up too late. By the time the Seldarine realized, the enemy was within the sacred forest. Coralon rallied his people. "To arms! Defend Arvandor!" The battle was chaos. Gods and monsters clashed in sacred groves. Divine blood soaked the earth. Ancient trees burned. Airdrie Fianna, goddess of the air, struck first with lightning and wind. Then Auril appeared, the evil goddess of winter. Ice clashed with lightning. The two goddesses grappled in midair, borne away on their own momentum. The horde charged. Coralon fought like a god possessed. Sahandrian blazed in his hands. Around him, the Seldarine held the line. But they were outnumbered. Guonadar manifested in the forest's heart, the ancient evil, writhing ooze and tentacles and hunger. Coralon tried to move toward it. He couldn't move. Green slime had oozed up from the ground, holding him fast. A hulking ogre god saw him trapped and charged. Coralon reached for Sahandrian. The blade wouldn't come free. The curse was still active. He looked up, saw Araushni watching from a distant hill, triumph naked on her face. In that moment, he understood. "Father!" Ilistrae's voice cut through battle. The young goddess had returned, bow in hand. She loosed arrows at the charging ogre. 1, 2, 3. 4 flew before the first struck. But Araushni's curse twisted their path. The arrows that should have struck the ogre curved toward Coralon instead. The first arrow pierced his chest, the second his shoulder, the third his side. Ilistrae screamed, "No! I didn't—" Coralon collapsed, divine blood pooling beneath him. Not dead. Gods are hard to kill. But wounded so terribly he fell into a death-like state, suspended between life and death. The Seldarine converged. They subdued Ilistrae, thinking she had betrayed them like Sehanine. They drove back the invasion with renewed fury, pushing enemies from Arvindor's borders. Victory. But a terrible cost. Coralon lay dying, 2 gods accused of betrayal, the sacred forest scarred. And Araushni knelt beside her fallen husband, weeping convincing tears, holding a vial of healing liquid. "This will save him," she announced. "Water from Elysium, infused with Arvindor's herbs. Let me administer it." She uncorked the vial. A ray of moonlight struck her hand, knocking it to the ground where it shattered. Sehanine Moonbow stood among them again. She had broken free using power she should not have possessed. Her face was carved from cold fury. "That was poison," Sehanine said. "Not healing. Poison that would have sent Coralon into eternal slumber." Arashni's mask of grief shattered. "How did you escape?" "I gave up something precious, something I can never reclaim." Sehanine's voice held infinite sadness. "But it was worth it to stop you." "Stop me?" Arashni laughed like breaking glass. "One more day and I would have had everything. I would have had such power you could do nothing." The Seldarine stared in horror. "You?" Hanali Salanil whispered. "All of this was you. All of it. The sabotage, the conspiracy, the invasion, every thread woven by my hand. I am tired of being secondary, tired of being the consort, the artist, the decoration. I deserve to rule. I deserve everything Coralon has claimed through nothing more than charm and beauty." Sehanine stepped forward. "You attacked our lord, betrayed our people, consorted with our enemies. For this, there must be judgment." "And who will judge me?" Arashne snarled. "Coralon is incapacitated. None of you are his equal." "Then we will become his equal." Sehanine, Hanali Salanil, and Airdrie Fiania joined hands. Luminous mist rose from them, coalescing into something new. A goddess born from three. Angharad, the triune goddess. She touched Corellon's forehead. Divine light poured into him. His wounds closed. The dark aura parted. The elf lord opened his eyes. He looked at Sehanine, at Angharad, at the assembled Seldarine. Finally, he looked at Araushni. His face held such terrible heartbreak that even I wept. "Why?" "Because you never saw me," Arashni said. "You loved an idea of me, a beautiful goddess content to weave and support you. But that was never who I was. I shaped the fates of mortals. I was power incarnate. But you treated me like property, like something to be cherished but never respected. I loved you. You loved what I pretended to be." Her voice was ice. "And now you will see what I have always been, the truth you were too blind to recognize." Coralon stood. "The council is convened. Let those who would speak do so." Sehanine told her story, every detail she had witnessed. Vaeron confessed his part. Illustrae was cleared, the arrows turned by the same curse that shattered Sahandrian. The evidence was overwhelming. In one voice, the Seldarine announced their verdict. Banishment. "You have betrayed us all," Angharad said. "For this, you are cast out. Go where you must." Arashni laughed. "You think this is defeat? I have made pacts with powers you cannot imagine. The abyss itself has offered me sanctuary. True godhood unbounded by your pathetic codes." She began to change. Her spine cracked. Elongated. Curved wrong. More vertebrae appearing. Her legs split, divided. 8 limbs erupted from her torso with wet tearing sounds. Her skin rippled. Darkened. Became black chitin, glossy and hard. More eyes opened above her original 2. Then more. 8 eyes total, gleaming with alien intelligence and infinite malice. But her face remained elven, beautiful even in corruption. "Behold," the thing that had been Araushni said. "Behold, LOLTH." Coralon stood before her, heartbreak carved into every line of his face. Then his expression hardened. He raised his hand. Divine power gathered. A portal opened behind LOLTH, a swirling vortex of darkness. The abyss. "Go," Corellon said. "Go and never return." The banishment spell took hold. LOLTH screamed as it pulled her down, her voice cursing them all, swearing vengeance on everything elven. The portal dragged her through layers of reality, down and down into the lightless depths of the abyss. She fell for what felt like eternity. Then she landed. The demon web pits. A layer of infinite webs and darkness that would become her realm. LOLTH stood in her new domain, testing the ground with her 8 legs, her multiple eyes adjusted to the gloom. She smiled. "They think they've won," she whispered. "They've given me exactly what I wanted. Freedom from their rules. Freedom to build my own civilization." She began to weave. This time, webs instead of cloth. Enormous structures that stretched across her plane, connecting to corridors that would lead to the Underdark, to the deep places below the mortal worlds. "I will teach my children that strength matters more than beauty, that power matters more than love, that only through betrayal can one truly survive." She looked up through the infinite layers, toward the light she had abandoned. "Thank you, Corlon, for casting me down, for giving me the opportunity to become what I was always meant to be." In the moment of her transformation, she had reached out across all the mortal realms, called to the elves, offering them power. Thousands answered, their skin darkened to obsidian, their hair bleached white. They descended into the Underdark, following their new goddess. The Drow were born in an instant, and Stray, unable to abandon her mother's twisted children, chose to follow them into darkness, to walk in shadow, bringing light to those who dwelt below. The compulsion magic shattered when LOLTH fell. The threads binding me dissolved, but the memories remained. I collapsed in Arvindor's gardens, my mind reeling. Coralon found me there, his face still carrying that terrible heartbreak. "What did she show you?" he asked gently. I told him everything, every betrayal, every moment I had witnessed while unable to speak. He listened. He wept. "I loved her," he said. "How did I not see? She was the weaver of destiny. She knew how to hide. She will plot from the abyss. Her drow will wage war from darkness." He stood, looked back at me. And despite everything, despite her betrayal and cruelty and monstrous transformation, part of me still loves her. That is my weakness, my eternal wound. He walked away. I stayed in Arvindor for another century before returning to the mortal realms. I have lived here ever since, watching the ages turn, watching the Drow build their cities in the Underdark, Menzoberranzan, Ched-Nasad, cities of cruelty where LOLTH's priestesses rule and betrayal is not just expected, but required. Sometimes I feel her attention on me, that sense of being watched by too many eyes. She hasn't forgotten her witness. I tell this story because it must be told, because people need to understand that gods can fall, that love can curdle into hatred so profound it births new races, new cruelties, new ways of suffering. LOLTH was beautiful once. She was Araushni, the weaver of destiny, beloved of Coralon, mother to gods. Now she is the Spider Queen, demon queen of spiders, queen of the demon web pits, goddess of betrayal and the darkness that dwells in every heart. She chose that path, thread by thread, choice by choice. And sometimes late at night, I wonder if she was right. If power really is the only truth. If mercy really is weakness. Then I remember Stray. Remember her choosing to follow the Drow into darkness. Remember her offering light in shadow. Remember that even facing such corruption, some still choose love. That has to matter. I check my reflection. Count my eyes. 2. Still 2. Count my legs. 2. Still 2. Pour me another drink. We're done here. Unless you want to hear about what the Drow have become in the 20,000 years since LOLTH's fall. About the cities where her priestesses rule with absolute cruelty, where males are property, where betrayal is survival. But that's another story. The Spider Queen is watching. She's always watching, and she never forgets. Neither do I.